Maya, tell me a little bit about you.
So my name is Maya Ojik, right? I'm a female cultural lifestyle coach, originally from Liverpool. I've been in the coaching industry for about 5-ish years now. Started off my real regular do, PT, and then found that there was a space to talk about other things for women, specifically cultural women, around their foods, their training, their lifestyle. And now we obviously have a team of 2 coaches, so it's me and Kekia. We are helping over 50 to 60 women at this moment in time, and we're doing a lot of events. We are still building, but all in all, yeah, I'm Scouse, I'm loud, not rare. How about you?
So I'm Nathan. I am the founder of Autonomy. I work with the South Asian community for the last 7 years, and obviously a bit weird with a white guy working with the Indian or South Asian community. But I got into that maybe 7 years ago with the Gujarati community, and then it just progressed from there quite quickly. And now I've got a team with over 2,500 South Asians in the last 4 years, and now we're quite global as well, which is pretty fucking awesome. So I guess from my side is like, how do you integrate cultural dietary preferences or traditional food into your coaching?
You know what, Nathan? The funny thing is like we've got similar niche and work with similar people. And what we know is that once you understand the foods, it becomes very simple in application when you've got that knowledge on macronutrients, protein, calories, and all the basic stuff that the gym industry really talks on. But for us, what we actually like to do is take the person and who they are in the very initial stages. So let's say we have women from West African backgrounds, Southeast Asian backgrounds. We kind of have that experience in knowing what foods are already there. But we start off by doing what I call like a identify implement system, and this is where we actually look over their diet, what they have, whether they're veggie and preferences, and sort of review and build it every single week to help them integrate the cultural food. Sometimes it's easy for some, sometimes it's harder for others. A lot of it is about mentality around foods, which I've found as well. I don't know about you, like how you do it.
Yeah. So like, do you find that there's like die-hard culture of people that are like, I need my plantain, or I need my dal, or I need my chevro, and then there's other people that are a little bit more flexible.
I think what it is like you only know what you know. So if you always grew up with that, that's going to be a staple food. The same way in different countries, there's might be bread, potatoes. So naturally, it's just installed into a diet. But we actually get the adverse. We get some women who completely deny their cultural dishes because they've been bought over time. They cannot good for them. So it's never a case of like one or the other. It's a bit of a pendulum swing. Like we'll have ladies on one spectrum or the other, but our goal is to get them right in the middle. The balance of understanding that they can fit it in and they can enjoy it, but it is all about portions, quantities, and the oil reduction as well.
But yeah, 1,000,000%. We have the same thing where a lot of our US clients, they've been taught as Indian food is a cheap meal, as opposed to Indian food is like just normal food. And to actually teaching them what that looks like on a day-to-day basis is really important. But equally on the flip side is teaching the people who have that every single day, day in, day out, and maybe they're not even getting it cooked. They're not cooking it themselves, but maybe they're getting cooked for, how to navigate those scenarios, which are obviously people are involved that are not just them. So that becomes I guess, the emotional tricky side of things when you're managing not only your diet, but you're managing your mum or your loved one or the people that are around you, which then becomes the game in essence.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, like we've got to remember in all cultures, food is such a big thing. Like it's what you celebrate with, it's always going to be at every function. And a lot of the time it's the approaches rather than the food itself. I know obviously, you work specifically with the Southeast Asian community. So, whilst embarking on your fitness and health changes, how does coaching address that inside what do you do when you're looking at like fitness and the nutrition side?
I guess there's probably two camps. One is looking at the camp of like integrating the traditional, the religious, the festivities, and anything that you would put under the identity of being South Asian. So everything from weddings and festivals to the foodie mentality or the love for food. As you mentioned before, I always say to clients, "Oh, food is ever present in the good times, the bad times, the negative times. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry's wedding or festivities, there's always food, and that's the primary centerpiece. It's not the people; it's actually the food. People are looking forward to having the samosa or the chevro or the bell, and they're having those moments where they're going for the food and the people, and it's like having those challenges where almost like you're trying to separate food as just a thing as opposed to the star of the show. The people are the star of the show. You're the star of the show, not the food that's there. That's just going to be a necessary step by step. So I guess that's one of the challenges is taking that approach, and we're often very much on the spectrum. So some people will be like, "Hey, just telling me what to do, and we'll do it." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then we have people that don't cook for themselves, that want to eat traditional traditional food that maybe are Jain sworn in or any type of religious kind of setting, they need to have a unique challenge, a unique perspective of that. And then everything from the protein intake and where they can get their food sources from then become that kind of direction that we give. But anything from the one plate rule of portioning food out and don't be an idiot all the way to here's specifically how much you should have of this to get the most benefit from it.
No, I completely agree. I think even because I've obviously coached so many women from so many different backgrounds, and when I've looked at the Southeast Asian community, it is this constant event after event after event after event. Like, we know the weddings last like daily, right? Like,
Yeah.
get a break. But it's almost like, okay, if they're going to these functions and there's a whole table spread of food, it isn't about actually saying you can't do this. You've got to take your scales there, the Tupperware. It's just being that aware that you can still make active decisions as an adult and know what's going to fit into your diet more. I think one unique challenge that we sort of find, especially around like the nutrition, fitness and all the health side, is the generational health. So people think they're kind of cursed because maybe their family members, they've always had poor health, you know, diabetes, and we even had clients as well with that PCOS, and that's a very, very big thing inside ethnic communities as well. They feel like sometimes that doing all these things are still going to put them in that doom, not being able to change, not being able to rewrite the story. And a lot of it, like you'll know, it starts off with food, but not being a sedentary individual as well. The training, I've always said, honestly, is the easy part, because once you're there, you're there, but food is a constant choice. So yeah, there's definitely all the challenges. They all different cultures. I think when the South Asian community, it is the events that really push this. It's maybe in the West African and Caribbean community, it's a lot about portion. That's what I've noticed a lot more.
What would you, when you say about that kind of the generational curse, like how would you approach that if someone was coming to you and saying, hey, like this is not happening because my mum is this and my dad has this and my auntie from an auntie from an uncle has this, like how do you tackle that?
Well, I did two things. And I think the first one is that we're in a I diagnose myself generation, right? Like people will say, I am this or I am that, and they'll actively lead into that and be that. But secondly, it's also understanding that, you know, these are the examples that we're seeing that we want to do the opposite of. So I don't know about you, like I come from a background where no one really resistance trains. So when I started resistance training, my research and my drive and seeing the lack of it in my household, that pushed me to do so. And when I looked at like Nigerian styles and the portions that they're having, it sort of taught me, okay, like it's not that the food is bad, but if we portion this down correctly, we'll be fine. So with every single woman who comes to us, the aim is really to breaking down the belief, right? Because yes, you might fall into that, but this isn't just for an aesthetic goal. It isn't just a fat loss. We need to find other variables of what you find enjoyable on your health and fitness journey to drive it, and that way you won't make the same mistake. You won't do the same things, right? It's all health and action based.
1,000,000%. Like belief systems are obviously the totem pole of where behavior change start. I always teach the clients thoughts, emotions, behaviors, actions. That's kind of the framework. It always starts at the thought, but we're always concentrated on the actions. We concentrate on how much what we do. If we can't do it, our motivation or discipline. But actually, if we start with the beliefs or the thoughts that we have, the rest of the stuff becomes much easier. And then when people realize that, they're like, oh, I can change. I did think like that, and maybe presenting them with a different option or a different alternative to how to think allows them to have an example. I didn't have any examples when I grew up. A lot of my clients don't have that one person that's fit and healthy in their family. They have everyone's got type 2 diabetes, so you fall to the mean. So if you just have that one person who's raising the bar or raising the standard of what like good looks like, people can then elevate through that and be like, hey, this is not how what's true. This is where you should be going with this, or this is where I'd love to see you change that.
And all the thing is, there's a comfort in knowing that things are reversible and manageable, right? Like, it's better to know that something can be reversed and can be managed than feel like there's nothing that you can do. And that's a powerful thing. I think if you harbour it and squinch it and maybe reframe it, it isn't your fate, it's your ability to change over time. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah. After a while, or if that's been going on a long time, the stories that we tell ourselves or the people tell themselves, it becomes that novel of fate, doesn't it? Because they believe that so many times they failed, so many times they backed it up with that story, and now it's kind of joined together massively within what they do. I guess when we look at like in the past, like when you worked as a cultural coach, what challenges did you face? Like, I guess embracing that identity of working with multiple cultures, saying that, you know, we help these type of women with these type of like criteria. What kind of hesitations, what kind of like challenges did you face?
I think what it is, and I think anyone in the same industry, you will have definitely had this, is like once you niche in, you feel like you outcast them. But what I understood is that I had the ability to understand mixed culture because I am that. So So like, come to my household, yeah, we might have your jollof rice, but we'll also have the mash and sausages someday, like how it is, right? So it kind of came naturally to me, and I had a lot of people around me who already cast into so many different cultures, love to travel. So when I changed to cultural coaching, a lot of people had a question mark of what that meant. And truth be told, it's whatever you want to mean. I think it's if you look at who you are, your identity, your religion, your culture, and all these things that make you, if that's what you want to keep in your fitness journey, we are for you. If you don't want to lose that part and have to go for a super bodybuilding westernized diet, we are that. I think the one challenge was though is trying to explain that to people and making them know that we see them and we hear them and we don't just segregate. But now, honestly, Nathan, like we've got ladies from South America, we've got ladies from Zimbabwe, the Congo, Britain, everywhere, right? And all of them are here for the sole purpose and same reason to change, just that the approaches look a little bit different. And I think that's what it is. It's an unwritten thing and an unsaid thing that a lot of cultural women do get. I just felt like in myself, it's like, oh, do I feel like a bit of a culture vulture here? But
I know that feeling.
yeah, I know you probably get it. Like, what about you? Because obviously, I'll be honest, I've never seen anyone who has zoned into a culture that's not through, ever. You are the only person I've ever seen. And I've got to say, there's a lot of bravery in it as well, because I know that the backlash can sometimes come. But yeah, did you face any like hesitations or, you know, worries or even backlash from changing to Southeast Asian as a me?
I think for me, because I never really changed anything, I was always doing it. This was me the whole way through. After I left being a personal trainer, I've only ever online worked with South Asian people. That's all I've known. So I was just working for somebody else. So then when I started working for myself, there was a moment where I was posting really generic content, but on the back end, the 100 clients I was working with were all Indian. They're all South Asian. And at some point, one of my friends just said, like, you're doing it in secret, just do it in public. And I'd had so much experience because I had the same story as you. Like, I've seen a video of yours where you talk about like Ramadan, like you knew nothing about it, and then you had to understand it. And I'm the same. Like, I got chucked to the wolves with like hundreds of people not knowing anything about the culture and being very British, where my mum would have spaghetti bolognese on a Monday and a chicken curry from a jar on a Tuesday, which is, you know, I think is nice, but like obviously my clients now would disagree. And then fish and chips on a Friday from the local place, and then Toby Carvery or whatever on a Sunday. Like, I came from that, so going into this I knew nothing. I had to learn very, very quickly. So then when it became to projecting this outward to the public facing, there was a lot of apprehension. It took me probably about a year to do like this specifically, and I still get it to today. Like, why are you doing this? What, like they want to, not even from a culture vulture perspective, but they just think that I'm in it for the money. They like, oh, South Asians have got loads of money in the US or whatever, they own loads of property, they're investment, they're wealthy. Yes, they are, and they do really great with their finances, but I also was working with them when I didn't have that cash incentive. So that was always the case. So yeah, it's always, every day is a day full of my DMs being like, hey, you colonized us, and now the same people that are colonizing us and now telling us how we should eat our diets, like, why is this okay? And it's like, dude, I've just told you to eat less portion size of any food. I'm 32 years old. I definitely wasn't alive when that happened. So yeah, it's always there. I realized that actually the more hate that I got, the more people we helped, because the viewership going up, and then we were able to help more people. So I'm like, I view it now as a positive. If I'm not pissing people off, then I'm not doing it well enough. Yeah. So
Tension is currency. And the truth is as well, I think obviously as, you know, we both grew up in the north of Britain. Let's be honest, with like the UK in general, it's a melting pot of culture now. And we have experienced, whether we've liked it or not, different communities, different cultures. So learning how to adapt, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. It's about respect. That's what I think it is. If you respect and you want to help, then that's one thing. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, as you've been, if I have seen coaches do before, then you're always going to get bought out in that. And, you know, you wouldn't have been able to build the business that you have today if it wasn't a genuine thing, you know?
Yeah, 100%. There's a comedian called Andrew Schultz who gets a lot of backlash for his really racy jokes on like everybody. But he's got a really interesting point. He says that the deeper you understand the nuances of jokes around a particular culture, the more they actually can respect your ability to dive into that culture. And I found that myself, not through jokes, because I'd coach through jokes, but the more I've understood, the more I've gone in, the more respect I've got back, because it's took time and people want that from people. They just want time, effort, and understand that you care.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, like, we've got to be honest, people travel all around the world to experience different cultures. That's what we're doing. And the beauty of it, and I feel this in myself, I learn something new every single day from the ladies that we coach. You know, something about food, something about their religion, something about their morals within their family. And I become a better person from knowing these things because I've become less ignorant. Like, if you don't actually feel comfortable to dive into someone else's culture and understand it, we will always remain ignorant. That's the problem. I think social leaders definitely push this, like, attack the person before they actually understand the reason.
Yeah, intent is massive, but you just can't judge intent over a 20-second, 30-second video. But you mentioned before about like kind of, I guess, generational, like kind of navigation of whether it's like food or whether it's like just the belief systems. But like, why was that like a pertinent point for you with food to kind of focus on, and especially within your coaching?
If I'm being honest, I think even before I was a cultural coach, I realized the impacts of food relationships. So I'm not going to do the whole, I had like an eating disorder. But as a young woman growing up in the generation that we're in, and it's all about looking a certain way, fitting a certain standard, being a certain weight, my own food relationship, the challenge. And the truth is, it's not just a woman conversation, it's also men. And, you see men in the competitive bodybuilding space and they have poor relationship route too. So as I started to transition, what I was realizing I was doing in my PT days, more of this restrictive mentality than I thought I was. I'm all for eating all foods, but why do I actually feel fear around certain things? And as soon as you start coaching women, and it happens naturally, they feel certain things, they use foods of comfort. And this is across every single culture I've seen. There is not one culture that we work with yet, and we've worked with people from various countries that don't have food relationship problems in their own place, right, or within their own culture. So we actually did EIQ, so we educated ourselves around food relationships, nutrition for women, and I've actually had a lot of talk to people who do deal with the eating disorder space to how to actually navigate that. And we've done it in a digestible way that allows women to have things like, doing the 5 breaths when they feel like they're going to sort of be into the comfort, finding other reasons to celebrate things outside of just food. And we do this and we talk about this every week without fail, because we learn naturally. And you'll know the minute that you say the word diet, it's going to shift someone's mindset. So straight away, it wasn't even a case of, oh, maybe I should. It happened very naturally, and it's always going to be there, because if it wasn't there, Nathan, we wouldn't have a job. What about you? Because I know obviously Southeast Asian communities, when it comes to food, I know there's a lot of like body standards within that culture too, and I know naturally that sort of shifts to the food conversation. So how do you approach like the approaches to food relationships within your coaching?
I think there's like, it's multifaceted. First, for me, it came through like a large frustration by seeing when I traveled to see clients and I would go and see their auntie, their family members. I'd sit at a dinner table and just observe what was going on around. And I'd get frustrated for my clients in a room full of 8 people where they're kind of getting pushed on, or they're kind of someone else is pushing their own agenda when it comes to food. So it came through a bit of frustration and my own experience dating within the community as well, where I had to say no 11 times for a Diet Coke, and it's a Diet Coke, like I'm like, just chill out. And then on the flip side is that then you see these, I guess, the Fair and Lovelies and the beauty standards that come with like kind of, and also how much within the South Asian community, especially with different castes, how important profession is and career is, and all of these things, they all again are driven by someone pushing you in a different direction potentially, and then they all then lead to resentment around particular aspects of how they view direction or how they view being pushed in a certain way if they don't believe the right way for them, because they've had it for so long with their career and who they should marry and who they can't marry, etc., etc. I use Maslow's hierarchy of needs a lot and explaining to people where these things kind of, I guess, base from, and then from there explain, if you want to kind of, yes, the tactics, what you mentioned, they're all awesome, like understanding those are great for those in those moments, but I like clients to understand, what do I need to feel good outside of food? Because you haven't got a food issue, you got a life issue, like somewhere in your life. Once the food issue is gone, if they can't go through the tactics and the strategies, the void is being filled from somewhere else, and that void needs to be filled, otherwise the food will always be there. So we need to find a no calorie version of a void to fill. So when we teach those, it's normally down to like intimacy, connection, stability, safety, or like general, the relationships, the environment, or the job, finances that they're in. And sometimes helping people, I've done this before, like this lady was constantly worried about finances, which was leading to eat more food. So I gave her the spreadsheet that I used for my own personal budgeting, which I don't use very often. I gave it to her, and then she was able to then navigate that moment to create security, create safety, and then actually then be able to not be so reliant on food, because she had a bit more of an idea around her finances, which is weird because it's not, you wouldn't say that's a diet and nutrition thing, but that is like the step below the.
Yeah, and you're so right as well, like when you said about like, observing the family behaviors. I always say, there's going to be so many different types of women, and their food relationship started from the minute they were born. So if you always have people pushing you to eat certain things, there we go, that has obviously forced you to overeat. Even the conversations around like, I don't know about you, when I was younger, it was eat all your food and then you'll get your sleep treats. naturally this is conditions us to go, okay, I'm full, but I'm going to eat more and I'm going to use sugar as the congratulations of the meal. And even other things, if we're looking at Southeast Asian communities specifically, I know that the conversation about weight is such a discussion that if you are constantly told that you need to change, you rebel at that. So rebelling might be overeating, rebelling might be undereating, rebelling might be just going outside of what you've been told. And it's like almost nurturing in a child event to know that you don't need these same vices. Everyone seeks comfort in food, but there's so much more that you can seek comfort in.
Yeah. So I always talk to I've done a lot of work therapy wise because I'm broken on the inside, but like I had that moment where I was like, oh, this is the 7-year-old acting. This is the things that the 7-year-old would want. When I was 7, all I wanted to have was food, crisps, get my own way and just be cuddled. They're the only things that I wanted, Going back to that with, I guess, the guilt and shame that comes, there's a lot of research on the guilt and shame in the community with South Asia community. I never really got that when I was younger. My dad's like a little bit more like a fake Scouser, he's a woolly back. So like he's got that kind of aggressive term where he's like, he'll just shout down the road at the postman. I'll be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Everton, like blue nose or whatever, because the Liverpool Everton fans. And he's got that type of mentality. So he'd always do that to me. So I understand a little bit about the guilt and the shame in those moments. But when I saw it firsthand to people that I cared about, I was trying to help. And then I saw the impact on those guys and how they would then not show up, or they would try less, or they would try and divert their attentions and do something different. It just was really hard to take because I was like, you've done nothing wrong. Like you were trying your best, doing great things. And then someone decided to, on their own volition, give you their opinion that they had no right. I used to get super annoyed. I was like, who does that fucking auntie think she is? Whatever. So like, I was like, I'll speak to her. Give me the fucking phone. There was a period of time where I definitely sent audio messages to people's aunties. I was like, hey, play this for your auntie next time you see her. And I was like, don't, whatever. I was giving it
This trip. And the problem is I think it's certain cultures, the elders are the highest respecters. So because of the higher respect, they let a lot of stuff slide. And there's a big fear of being outcasted, right? Like you don't go with the grain and you go against it, this family ain't going to speak to you anymore. And of course, that's not in every single cultural community, but I have seen it a lot from the career that you have, from the people that you marry. If you're always treading in the path of trying to please someone, that's where you never actually get to where you want to get to. So yeah, one day you'll blow at the auntie, and the auntie's always saying this and giving advice, but you don't live it herself, right? It's always a divorce, overweight auntie who wants to give so much advice to somebody else. But that's it. You've got to kind of be able to like bust it up a little bit. And this isn't just obviously within your niche. I see it in every single culture, right? Even European, I've seen it in South American, everywhere. And I think it's just boundaries as an adult that you have to refine, especially if you've been part of your communities and you do have a tight-knit family.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's like it's really good when people are open to that type of coaching. Like some people come in and they're like, hey, I'm here to lose weight. I'm like, that's cool, and I'll do the social stuff and I'll whatever, and they'll do nutrition. But when someone's open, I've got a lady who's like really open, like we're talking the same lady with the finances, where I'm like, hey, this is the boundary that you need to set with your mum. Like her mum would be like, hey, go to the post office at 2 a.m. This lady's 34, got a full-time job, and like she's like, hey, go to the post office, and she would innately, emotionally go and do that thing because that's what she's been brought up doing. That's like a thing for her. And we had to build boundaries with her lifestyle to be like, hey, no, I'll do that later, but I've got this to do. And I think when you have like, I guess, grew up in a culture where maybe your self-esteem or your own autonomy has been pushed down and maybe the self-esteem is a bit lower, boundaries are the last thing that you think the most difficult thing to do, because you're actually standing up for yourself in an area where you're like, that's the opposite of what I want to do right now. I want to hide and I want to go and sit in a different room, or I want to go out and avoid the situation altogether. I want to attack. But in those moments, that's where the boundaries then become a large factor, slow and steady.
And this is it. It's like, we know that, honestly, let's be real. Anyone who's working with you or working with me have done coaching or some type of help or PTing before, right? So if that didn't work for them, what was missing? It's the stuff that makes the difference. And I think now that this industry has become like, oh, okay, this plan, this workout, this is going to work. But what we actually know, it's actually the social issues. It's how they feel in certain environments. And I think it's been amazing to watch how things have developed, how things have transpired a little bit now in this industry, and knowing that people actually talk about things other than macros, gym and deadlifts. Like some women will go through 10 PT before they find the right one, and some men will too, because they don't think about the actual situations that are keeping them stuck. And it's all about mindset. You've really seen this over the years that a training plan and nutrition plan isn't enough anymore, and we have to be providing more. But I know you've been in the industry a little bit longer than me, close to a decade now. So how have you seen like the wellness industry evolve, like especially around like cultural considerations?
I think it's funny now because I guess the South Asian niche, like maybe the last 2 years, there are a lot of people, especially specializing within the South Asian community, and that like I'd never ever seen it before, and I've been in this game for a long time, which is great. The more people who can specialize and just own the fact that they're South Asian and they want to help South Asians, I'm all for that. There's people that are like, there's a guy called the Black Body Coach. Never spoke to him, but he looks really cool. It looks his good stuff, like really good stuff. And I'm like, he owns it. That's who he helps, and that's specific. Because if you go an inch wide and a mile deep, that's much more helpful than the other opposite of whatever that is. Yeah. So I like that fact that it is, but the evolution of online, the evolution of personal training, the evolution of like kind of the wellness space in general is so interesting because it just swings, and it also comes back because now there's an extra layer with social media. People can say whatever they want, and then on the inside you open that door, you pay your money, and it looks the exact same. Whereas before it was like you just paid for a plan, you knew what you were getting. And when I started online 7 years ago, the people that started online were either contest prep people because they wanted to work with a coach in a different country, or it was people who were a little bit more attuned to training. They weren't beginners, they were intermediate. They did just need a training program. They knew what a drop set was, and they did know what a macro was. So hey, here's the PDF file, go and do that. 2 years before COVID, when I seen that it changed, where it wasn't intermediates coming through, it's people who had never picked up a dumbbell, had never understood portion sizes or even understand what a protein is. And then I think that's where the industry lacked a gap, maybe especially over COVID, it just obviously inflated up. But there's a large gap between the market or the people that were coming in and accessing online or accessing the way that we do things, and then to where it is now, where there's now, I guess, there's an overcorrection, and we're the overcorrection. We're correcting back with specific stuff that help a specific demographic. There's a gap, maybe 4 to 5 years. We were trying to give intermediate stuff to absolute rank beginners, and then they would come back with 55 questions on an email and be like, hey, what's a protein? Hey, where it says 3 sets of 10, like what's the 10 and what's the 3? And it's like, oh, we got this wrong. It shifted very, very quickly. I saw that change maybe from the industry, but I think as well as that, a lot more people are a bit more receptive. When you do shit stuff, you realize what good is when you do a lot of crap stuff, right? So I think we're very, very poor predictors of what makes us happy, but we're very, very good predictors of what makes us like really annoyed. So basically a lot of people got a lot of crappy stuff, and then they able to then articulate what they needed from a service. The people who just need a training program, nutrition, they never work with us, but the people that have had bad experiences or found out what they didn't want, then are able to articulate what they need from us, and then we're able to provide that in a little bit more of a specific manner. So yeah, I think really interesting that how the access to online increases availability, but also the type of people that are coming in and what they need. But what about yourself?
No, I agree. Like even when you said in the COVID, I think what COVID forced people to do is dig deeper, right? And we know that COVID in general, it isolates us from the world. It was a very uneasy time. People lost their jobs. People had jobs, started businesses. People lost weight, you could gain weight. But in all of the crazy things that happened and all the uncertainty, a door got opened for actual things about like mental health and like doing small things to add to a bigger goal rather than just thinking it's live, breathe the gym. Because when the gym was gone, what do we do then? And when food wasn't always eaten out, what do we do then? And it forced people to actually look at some of the situations that they had before and after and how to address them. And I always said, in COVID, that's when I actually started to try and change my niche and become a cultural coach, because the things that were getting said to me, it was like not what I'd usually say to somebody. This isn't the conversation that I'm usually having. Usually it's, hey, did you fat today? Or like, you go in the gym today, but that's not what it is anymore. I think the wellness industry has developed massively because you have to be human and authentic first. When in the beginning, it was like, you want to get this result, do this, do that, and then you don't even have to communicate with people, but that's not coaching. I think a lot of people who had coaches in the past now have this perception that they're all very much like, do this, do that. But I think the beauty of it now is that like me and you and other coaches out there, we're able to spread a message that doesn't just lie in the generic bodybuilding tactics anymore. And it's been the best things to the industry. And I hate when people say, oh, it's saturated, because you can be the change, you can be the person who makes a different conversation happen. Simple as that.
1,000,000%. I did a tactic maybe about 4 or 5 years ago where we were doing like weekly check-ins. And then when I said that shift happened between the intermediates and the beginners, that's when I registered that people needed a lot more support, and most people would go wrong on a Tuesday or a Thursday or whatnot. So we do what we call daily reports, and I've taught this to like hundreds of coaches now because of how quite good it is. But Monday to Friday, we just have small interactions with our clients all the way through the week, because when you're on a plane, you don't want large course corrections that feels bumpy. It's horrible to go in a 90-degree angle on a plane, I imagine. But when you're on Ryanair, it might do that. But anyway, when you're on Emirates, it only goes like 1 degree at a time. And when you feel that, it's a lot more smoother. So a lot more people, I think they were so used to being more connected over COVID because they were just at the fingertips all the time, that when you then gave them the type of social norm, sometimes social norms are bad within like maybe food, but social norms in what people are having food, like connection wise, if you tap into that too, which is the daily communication or the WhatsApp comms, then people can feel a lot more connected. They can get course corrections, they can change quicker.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't-
I see them.
Oh, hello, Doc. We'll have to be part of the podcast today. I love that.
But yeah, like even when you're saying that, like that constant communication and checking in with people is so helpful. And that's why personally now, as an online coach, I've started doing more in-person stuff because, you know, now we've ran like 2 solid events and the women who we meet online, we meet them in person and it's exactly what we expected. It's the vibe they want. They feel like they are heard, they are seen. And I think that truthfully, it matters so much. There's so many communities that have come off the back end of COVID and people need to feel like a part of something. So if we can do that innocent thing as, yes, checking in with them every day or, you know, having that WhatsApp group and talking about things that we talk about, that in general keeps people locked into the idea that they can actually get where they want to get to.
Yeah, I think even more so for what we do and how we do it is like if people psychologically have that fearfulness of maybe being extradited or be a separation away from the social norms, in essence, instead of having nowhere to go with their thoughts, their like how they feel, they can access 7 other women or 50 other women that you have, and that gives them power to make that change. Like, because if they had nowhere to go, they're less likely to make those difficult scenarios happen and they'll maybe sink into that social norm. But if they've seen 50 other people or they have 50 other people and they know them by name, they know where they live, they've met them in person, they've shared stories with them, they can use that as a bit of a transfer of energy of being like, no, that's actually the way I want to go, and then I will make that step. So I think for us, community face to face and opening doors for each of them to speak to each other and have that open dialogue. Maybe they don't speak to us more because they're probably sick of us, but if they have more of the individuals that are in the same boat as them, they have that, we call it the spider web of change, where they're not just an outsider to the 7 people around them anymore. They're actually one of the 7 that are actually changing. It's someone else that's weird for not changing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's so much easier. I think a lot of PTs are out there like, I would just need clients. But when you know who you work with, right? Like I do this all the time. Anytime I speak to a new client, I'm like, you remind me of X. You get on with X, X, X in the boot at no string to lay. And that in general, if you feel that in themselves, they can feel that energy. And the minute they come into your circle, you know they're in the right place. And it's okay. I think if any coaches feel like they don't have that strong community, it's probably because they're not congruent to each other. So make an area, an environment that makes people feel congruent to each other. So yeah.
I guess with your community, like in passing over like 30 cultures, I'm so curious to understand a little bit more about how does that blend mash? We're all brown people, so we're all good. Like we're all like in that same joke. We're very much from a similar background, but you have like the world map all over of your coaching. So tell me about that.
So there's 2 things. We never assume, because there is a lot of people who do not connect directly with their culture and they may not actually have those roots there. So we've had some clients who've actually joined us and then went back to it, like went back to eating their cultural foods and started spending more time with family because they can see that it's a part of their identity. But the second one is to focus on the areas in certain cultures that thrive for people when they're looking at the health and fitness. So for example, if I was to use any like Japanese clients I've had before or Asian clients I've had before within that region, I know that certain things that they do, especially around food, is a great habit to push on other people. Not even push, show to other people. I also know that, you know, mentality on working hard, that's going to come from the Southeast Asian community. That's also going to come from the West African community. And even things like, you know, when we're looking at Diwali, Eid, this process of becoming more grateful, all of these things that we push, like you mentioned, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, every culture will showcase something to do with that in the way they approach things. So yeah, it's more about opening up conversations, making sure that you can feel seen and heard, not assuming, but allowing them to access what they need when they need it, right? Because sometimes we'll have people and I'll see a food that I don't understand, go and learn about the history about that, why they want to include it in the nutrition, why it is important to them, and that's something that I know. So next time I've long got in the bank for the next person to come in. You know, I remember I had my first Polish client once, and on my fitness call and on these tracking apps, when you log it, it's in a different language. So I naturally had to challenge myself as a coach to understand what being human and actually being able to sit there and be vulnerable, go, listen, like, I don't know what this is, Katie. Like, that just shows that I'm willing to help. I'm not just going to bypass something, and other people will pick up on that too. Because honestly, I learn something new every single day. Our head coach Katie does too. And it's just such a community. So it's on a struggle. It happens really naturally because they've all connected to our content from what we say already. so it's fine.
I like that. You have such more of an eloquent way to put it about all of these things. I'm like, I literally get on calls with people. I'm like, what style of Indian are you? Do you eat tradition? Where are you? Are you like Mexican food on a weekday, like the US? Indians in America love Mexican food for some reason. So I like, are you an Indian who eats Mexican food, or are you Indian who eats traditional food? Like, where are you on the scale of 1 to 10? That's how I put your so eloquently lovely statements. But
That's the thing, you know what? Like, even in our initial forms, right? He opened a door. So we're like, is there any religious or cultural considerations that you feel is important that we should know as we culture, right? If it's blank, you can still fit in this community. If it's not, okay, who's this person in front of us? And it was even like when I mentioned when I had no clue what Ramadan was. Obviously, I've heard about it, but I didn't really understand it. And one of my clients actively taught me exactly what it is, as basically shadowed her during Ramadan. And everything that she told me and all the things that she was doing, I was like, I know this now. Let me apply my fitness, health, nutrition brains. And if it isn't for those people who we never learn. So I highly encourage people, not just in a coaching space, you need to get around different cultures, because one, it'll show you what works really well in your own, and then what doesn't work so well in your own. And
100%. We have the same form of learning. Like, I just sat with clients. I'd see some foods and they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I'd be like, "What are you eating here?" Like, it looks like mush or whatever. I'd make a joke. I'd do it through sarcasm and curiosity. It's to be able to sit with people and just say, "Okay, what would you do? How would you do that?" Like, this whole thing with like religious fasting days, and I'm like, "Okay, but you're not actually fasting, so you do get to eat." And I was like so confused about these, like within the Jain community and so on. Like, it's not real fasting where you go without food. They have different variations of things. So I just couldn't get my head around that. So I'm like, please just explain to me what you can eat, what you can't eat. Why are we doing this? How many times a year are we doing it? And it's the same process. I was like, just tell me all of this so I don't look like an idiot. And then for the next 20 people, I guess probably we're the same. We want to help, and we just also don't want to look like an idiot too. Is also a driver.
this is what I mean. It's like even on Instagram and social media interactions, you want to show people something that they don't know already. So, for example, one time I put on my story, my client was talking about eating swallow. So you basically put it in your mouth, swallow it down. It's a very big thing in West African culture. And someone messaged me and was like, what the hell is a swallow? Is that an animal? And I was like, okay, it's fine that you don't know, because now you're going to understand and you're going to know it, and it's going to be in your bank forever. So next time you see it, it's not going to confuse you, right? And I think the beauty of it, really, I would never trade to go change my niche at all, because it honestly helps. And even for this traveling, if I ever travel anywhere, I got all these people I can ask the questions that I need to ask.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the last question that I want to know is pick 3 or 4 4 different I guess cultures, and then cultures or like areas, and then let's choose the best food.
The best foods.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Let's go Nigeria.
Jollof and sugar, hands down.
Okay. For someone that is never been to a Nigerian restaurant in my whole entire life, maybe flew over it a few times on the way back to the UK, what's the taste and what's the process of making it? Like, what makes it so special?
So I'm going to identify myself as a fraud. So I've never really cooked any of my cultural dishes because I don't do it justice. Okay.
That's a very good excuse.
When you drop it, it's beautiful. So jollof is basically rice, and you blend down peppers, tomatoes, you bake it like it's a bit like a biryani, right? And then suya is just beef cubes in a certain fusion. You grill them, and they're very lean. It's a bit like beef jerky type of vibe. But that and that together, that's a meal. Don't need nothing else. Okay, I'm gonna throw one back at yours then. What is actually your favorite Southeast Asian dish?
So, like, if we're going for mains, I just don't think you can go wrong with a butter chicken and naan. Most of my clients would be like, that's not real Indian food. So I think if I'm gonna go with, like, it would be like some paneer, chili paneer with roti, rice. It has that like really thick gravy, spice, and then either full fat paneer because it's tasty as hell, or chicken. You can't go wrong with anything like that. Japanese.
You know what? I'm gonna be such a basic person. It's gonna have to be some type of sushi in it. And you know what? This is the thing. I actually haven't explored Japanese foods because I haven't been to Japan yet. But I've obviously had the westernized version of it. But did you know that the way you go on a table for a restaurant and they give you bread? That whole thing is obviously to make you eat more, but the Japanese actually put things like edamame beans because that's to line your stomach with the fiber that you need and get you ready to eat a meal and be full from the meal and not the bread before, to stop your buying habits and eating habits extends. So they have really got everything tapped in. Yeah, so I'm gonna say sushi for now.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, when you go there, I imagine you're just going to get explored and just open a new world.
Yeah, okay. Let's see.
South American.
When I went to Argentina, like, I had the best steak I've ever had in my life in Argentina. So like, you can't go rice. But do you know what? Their classic like beans and rice is just hits different, especially when you're there as well. I think it's a bit more like nostalgia based as well. Yeah, you can't go wrong with beans and rice. But they've got lots of different options. I haven't been to Colombia, but whether it's Brazil or Argentina, I just can't pronounce half of the names that I ate. I'm like typical British when I go away. I'm like, just point at the menu and I'm just like, this one. Yeah. So what about you?
I know what steak you had. You would have had picanha.
100%.
It's a certain cut of meat and it is the best. To be fair, it's quite funny that you mentioned obviously like the beans and rice thing. That is such a staple thing, especially in like West African culture. Like wache is very similar to what they eat in Brazil and South America in general. I think for me it is picanha, like hands down. I'm gonna eat that every single day because I'm a big steak lover.
Yeah, that's good. Is there British dishes? When's the last time you made a scouse?
I don't like scouse. We know why. I just feel like it's just tiger bread, really. That's all it is, isn't it? Like you have to eat with tiger bread. It is.
That's so true.
I will get on my knees and beg for a cheese and vegan jacket potato, banging. And I know everyone on TikTok is like, shut up. Like, it is
Unbelievable.
with some butter in it.
That was my school, every day at school. Yeah.
What about yours?
Greg's sausage roll. That's the best thing in the UK. So
And then when you're over there, can't get that over there.
no, you have to import it. Smuggle it in.
Smuggling it.
Well, this has been absolutely lovely. I'm actually super curious to go a layer deeper next time we do a podcast on more around the benefits of the food. And also I want to explore that topic of beans and rice and how it's very across every single like continent, and it is very, very key. So it'd be very good to go. That's where I'm going to be looking at tonight on the internet. So yeah, I thank you for the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. And it's been absolutely fantastic. Also great to see what you're doing and how well you're eloquently working with the women that you work with. You're doing a great job.
And you, honestly, I was really happy to even be asked on this and do this collaboration because it's something that I feel like we don't see cultural coaches collaborating with each other and actually talking about things other than just calories and macros, which are free. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. All right.
Problems.